So now we got a horizontal crack, and there's two different ways that we could fix or keep this crack. The goal is not to bring the foundation back to normal, but what they're trying to do is stop the foundation from getting worse. All right. So if there's in this situation, this is called a buttress. All right. So on the left side of the picture, you can see we poured a new footing underneath here, and that footing is supporting this concrete wall that's 90 degrees perpendicular to the actual foundation wall. The top of it, right above the red dot there, we ended up putting lumber, whether it's 2x4s or whatever. The whole idea of that is to keep the top from being pushed in. So we tie this into the floor on the bottom and fill it in, so we keep the bottom from being pushed in. We fill it all with steel because we need to have the tension strength that's going on there, and then we put poured concrete to fill that line. So how do we tell if this is working? I shouldn't have any sort of gaps here or here. And also we should want to know who did this. This is one of the things where I encourage people, or I'm talking about my clients, we need to go into journalist mode here. And that's the who, what, why, where, when, and how. All right, who did the repair? When was the repair done? Why was the repair done? Were any additional repairs done? Did this fix the problem? Is there any sort of warranties that are associated with it? Again, let's not take somebody else's problem and make it our problem. All right, we identify the issue, we let our clients know what it is, and then there's more homework that needs to be done. It's not our job to be responsible for these. If it does happen, you may see multiple buttresses that come in here, and again, each one is designed to keep the kneecap from pushing in. All right. Another one is a Pilaster or Pilaster, however you pronounce it. I'm fine with it. Here they're shown with bricks or cinder blocks. Sometimes they'll use I-beams when they put it in here. Again, the main thing is to keep the kneecap from coming in. Again, we're going to support the bottom from kicking in, and we're going to support the top from moving. Not always is this gap in here filled in. All right. Now, if this is solid and the damage and it's not bent, it's not curved, even if this area is touching and the other areas are not, then we're going to say that it's probably doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's holding that kneecap back again. All right. However, if it is damaged or cracked, then it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And again, get your clients in the journalist mode. All right. Same thing here. They've done I-beams, and I see this a lot. I got a feeling because it's the easiest method to put in there. So they're going to concrete the I-beam down low, get it up nice and tight, secure it to the flooring up above. And again, I don't, unless you could see that it's bending or giving way, I don't know any other way to tell if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. All right. Something else that's not in here is where they'll drill through the concrete and they'll go to undisturbed earth, so maybe 10 feet away, and they'll dig a trench out there, and they'll put 2 plates on each side with the steel rod, and they'll tie those together. That's a pretty common repair as well, and you're going to see plates on the inside of those. All right. All of these are supposed to be done with professionals, and all of them should have some sort of a warranty or guarantee that's associated with them. But again, those are the companies that made the profit off of the repair. Those are the companies that made the repair and designed the repair and should be responsible for the repair. So that's part of that journalist stuff. Let's get them involved in it and let them be there. This is one of the methods that I don't like when I see it. And I start getting nervous when I see these super thick window wells, or if there's a big cavity above the wall on the finished ones where the insulation is, and now I got like 1.5 feet, 2 feet up on there where my walls start and this thing ends, and you can't see this. If somebody puts another wall up there and then all of a sudden we have drywall and finishes on there, we don't know what's going on back there. All right. Now this is designed to take the weight off if the floor joists run perpendicular to it. So it's removing the body from the top of the kneecap. But it's also designed to keep the kneecap, from coming in there as well. And again, use your disclaimers. I'm sorry that I'm harping on it, but just don't let other people's problem become your problem. All right. So different types of movements, whether it's in the middle, whether it's up high, whether it's down low, whatever the case is, our foundation is supposed to be straight up and down. We did say that there is an acceptable lean that is 1/3 of the width. So typically on an 8-inch foundation, if I round up to 9, 1/3 of that means from the top to the bottom, I could go over 1/3 of the width of what it is. So 3 inches would be the maximum lean, or just under 3 inches. All right. On the outside, I like to see that foundation, plain and simple. If the earth is higher than the foundation and we don't have that clearance, I'm calling out wood rot, termites. Everything is about designing to prepare my clients for potential issues. And then I'm going to be aggressive on the inside and we're going to look for them. But nonetheless, we don't want to ignore it. Typically, it's going to be 8 inches for wood frame structures above grade, and then concrete or brick, it's going to be 6 inches. But if it's a true brick home, it's going to go all the way down, or it's going to be difficult to tell exactly if I'm above the floor joist or not above the floor joist. So that's what they're trying to show here. Use other clues. Even though we're showing more of a concrete with a wood frame structure on top of it, I think a better foundation to use in this drawing would be an actual brick foundation, where we're 3 widths for the foundation and 2 widths, so it's this true brick structure above grade. We need to figure out if our grade is below or above the floor joists in there. So looking for water spigots, looking and seeing how they go outside from the inside, dryer vents if they're in the basement, electrical feeds if they come out that way, and wires coming out of it. If those areas are below the earth and it's coming out of the earth, then there's a good chance that our earth is above where our floor joists are as well. Don't be afraid to look at the window wells. Obviously, if the earth is higher than our floor joists, or our window wells are higher than our floor joists, that's also saying the same thing. All right. So now we have that horizontal crack. And this is kind of with the drawing that I put up on the board earlier. So I got an angular crack that comes in here. We follow this one down and to the right, and it goes to the last point of support. That means everything underneath of it is settling. All right. So we're saying that this section is settling. Now, this drawing I firmly disagree with. I think mudjacking is probably the worst way you can go ahead and repair a foundation with a basement and try and make it. Now, if this was a slab, that's a whole nother story. All right. Slabs are great. Sidewalks, driveways, monolithic pours for houses and detached garages. This would be a great solution. All right. But if I have a basement and a strip footing or a spread footing going around, it's just, we don't know where that slurry is going to go. And we don't know what it's going to fill up or pull anything up there. So it's really just not a good idea. All right. This one is a helical anchor. Now, most of the repairs in our area are going to be from the inside and not from the outside. And if you think about it, you need to get to under the footing to make this happen. So you can either dig down 8 feet and get to the footing then and get underneath the footing to put your bracket on there and then attach your pile or your helical anchor into the earth to go ahead and start raising this back up. But the inside of that house was already dug out, all right, because we have a basement in there. So now all we have to do is bust open that flooring on there and go down about a foot or so, and we have plenty of room to work in a nice controlled environment. So most of the repairs that we're going to see are going to be done from the inside, unlike what this illustration shows being from the outside. So a helical anchor is a screw, basically. And, same thing with screws. Sometimes we're going to screw that into a piece of wood where there's so much friction, I can't turn it anymore. All right, so I'm done. And that's basically what's going to happen here. This thing's going to keep spinning into the earth until I get enough friction on this thing. And then they're going to be able to jack that building back up, or at least support it, so that it's not going to want to go back down again. So helical anchors are more of a screw type mechanism as opposed to a pile. which is forced down, usually with hydraulic pressure. That's going to end up being happening. So again, the drawing shows it from the outside. Typically, it's going to be done from the inside. With these, it's even less damage. They only have to make a small opening, just enough to get the bracket bolted onto it. And they do that for each foundation. Typically, you're going to see them, I would say somewhere between 5 and 10 feet. So, more towards the 5 foot mark. And and you'll see those brackets will stick up once they pour that concrete. So you're going to see where it was. Or maybe you'll see the rod sticking up there as well. And they'll put the bracket on there, attach it to the machines, and usually if they have to do a whole wall, they'll have all of them going down at the same time so that hydraulic pressure will all be tied together, and the weakest one will move first, and then when that starts getting pressure, and then the other one, and this way they get everything working at the same way so they can lift the house up equally and evenly, and they're not making things any worse. And again, their goal is not to bring the foundation back to where it was. They would love to do it, all right, but they never make that promise to make that happen. The big audacious goal here is to keep it from moving further. So they drive those piles until they get enough pressure to where they do get a counterforce coming and the walls are moving back up. Then they stop, all right. They don't want to take a chance of doing any sort of damage in there, all right. I've seen repairs. I went out to, I like the Lake Geneva, Illinois area quite a bit. And because it's right on the Mississippi River and they got a lot of sloped areas there and some big drops with retaining walls and stuff, they got a lot of earth movement out there as well. And usually you'll end up seeing stars on the back with rods that are going through the building, and they're kind of holding everything together, figuring if this thing's got to go down, it's got to lean to go down. So if I keep the walls tied together, then that's going to work as well. So sometimes you'll see rods going through it, and typically on the outside you'll see a star or some sort of a plate or that comes in there, and that's just to keep the walls from going outwards, all right. And usually you're going to find those on, like I said, the areas where you get those steep slopes that go down there, because the earth is moving and it's starting to take part of the house with it, all right. A few other rules. And again, I'm not going to call these things out if they don't exist. Now, the lady that drew these illustrations with us, she drew them, based on what I told her. It looks like they're talking about the footings on here. We're not. We're talking about the tops of the foundation walls. The footings should be straight across. Those should go underneath the frost line as deep as we're going to go onto this stuff. So if this is a walkout basement, maybe that we're looking at, that footing is actually going to go all the way straight across, and we'll have a foundation here. What we are talking about is when we start building on top of our wall, on top of it, we're going to be putting downward pressure on these things. So we don't want to have narrow pieces with big drop-offs on there. So at a minimum, we should be 2 feet on a horizontal run. At a maximum, when we have the step downs, it should be no more than 2 feet. All right, but really we're trying to figure out if I'm steeper this way, I have an easier effect to shear that off. But if I'm this way, it's much harder to create that shear on that triangle to get it to step off. So I would like you to remember the 2 foot number. When we're dealing with settling and movement, usually we're going to have constant movement, or we're going to, or everything's moving at the same time, or we're going to have differential movement, which means part of the structure is moving and part of it isn't. So it depends on how you look at this rotational settlement crack. You can see the original house hasn't moved at all. And then the addition off on the left-hand side, that entire addition has moved or pulled away. And that's why we're seeing the crack here. So you could count on this section still remaining one piece. All right, and then that's not differential settlement. But if you count this as one big structure, this one's moving and this one isn't. Now it is differential structure. Whenever we see the cracks in the building itself, this is definitely differential structure. So like this area here is holding up, where this area underneath here is settling. All right. So again, we follow our crack down to the last point of support, go to the right side of the door. We're either heaving up here or this part is settling. And because gravity is pretty damn strong, I think it's pretty safe to say we're probably settling. All right. Same thing here. My crack goes down. Here's my sister crack on the other one. Our best bet would be look for this post to settle. So this whole thing is dropping, plain and simple.